Hello, world. It's me, Dennis, and welcome to another reasonably spontaneous conversation. I have a wonderful guest today, and I'm going to tell you a story from my history with this guest, but I'm going to bring her up already, Nadine Jolson. Nadine, hello, Nadine.
Hi. Thank you so much for
Welcome.
having me. This is exciting.
This is a pleasure because your family, the Joseph family, made such an impression upon me when I was a kid. Now picture this. This would be in like about 1960, 1962. About that time. They were rerunning the film, the biopic, the Jolson story, and Jolson sings again. It was a double bill. I had no
Wow.
idea. I just decided to go in. I'm in Victoria, Texas. I go into the theater, and I am knocked out. I
Aw.
It just absolutely blew me away. The power of and the presence of because Al sung all the music. So he sung all the
Mhm.
songs, even though Larry Parks was the actor who did it in the biopic.
Yeah.
He sang. All right, so it changed my life. I knew I wanted to do show business. I knew that kind
Wow.
of a drive that I wanted. I mean, it inflamed me. So, all right, so now come later on. Here we are in 2021, and I meet you. I meet you as we're looking for guests. You have this wonderful creative agency in there, and I say, "Oh, by the way, Jolson, that's an interesting name. Are you?" And you go, "It's my grandfather's brother." My
Yeah.
grandfather's brother. So you were born into Hollywood royalty. For those people who don't know Al Jolson, think Elvis, think any of the huge entertainers, the worldwide entertainers, that is how big Al Jolson was.
Yeah.
Nadine, how did you, as a child, you were born in '60. Did you know you were born into Hollywood royalty? What was the
Oh,
family dynamics during that time?
oh, absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, I was born in Beverly Hills,
Yeah.
so second generation, and we knew. I mean, it was part of just our world. My mom worked in the business at the time. She was working as a manager. She managed like the company that she worked with managed like Pat Boone and Roy Rogers and Dale Evans and Uncle Fester. I remember the actor that played
Wow.
and a bunch of other people, and so she was in the business as well, and so we've kind of all
And
on this side of the
there weren't that many women in the business, or certainly in the business side of the business. It was a much thinner uh, group at that time.
Probably so. My mom was always an innovator, and she was a single mom. Or my parents split when I was very young, and kind of she raised us on our own. And Jolson name is actually her birth name, and we
Wow.
adopted the Jolson name because we were always the Jolson kids. So I actually had my name legally changed when I was 18. But we were always the Jolson kids. And so my mom she was a hard worker. She was independent. She was always, out there, go get them. And gave me a lot of my independent spirit that I have today. Absolutely. But yeah, so we were always in around the business. My mom was an executive producer at other times in her career. My brother was an entertainment journalist, worked for the Hollywood Reporter, and he also helped working with the NARAS, the music organization who puts on the Grammys, and did Grammy
Yep.
Magazine, and a whole bunch of different things. And I do entertainment PR, and
Well, I mean,
marketing.
you do that, but at 18, all right. So you were born in 1960. So this would
Mhm.
have been 18. You would have had. So this would have been like 1978. And so
Mhm.
who was Nadine Jolson in 1978? What did you have the show business bug? Did you have the entertainment bug?
No, it's funny. I didn't have the entertainment. I mean, entertainment bug. What I had was a fashion bug. So I started working from the time I was about 13, 14 in fashion. Even before that, I was modeling. So I always had a great love for fashion. And I was also really smart. So I was always kind of like, well, how can I make fashion marketable? Like, how can I make money other than just like modeling? And as I kind of grew out, I was like kind of an awkward teenager. And then as I grew a little older, then I realized like modeling and dancing, I was thinking maybe being a professional dancer, like those weren't going to actually work out for me, but I always loved fashion. So I started working in retail, and I was, running a small fancy clothing store in at the time, and loved it. And then literally I ended, a relationship, and things were changing up. And my dad said, who I was trying to always, build a better relationship with, like, come to San Francisco and come stay with me. And I have a retail shop, and you can run my retail shop, and we'll get to know each other. And I'm like, okay, why not?
Wow.
And so I packed up my little car and hopped to San Francisco. And his best friend, so I was working at the shop, and I picked up calligraphy when I was a teenager, because I've always had good handwriting, and his calligraphy was really fun. And so I was doing like signs and wedding invitations and things like that. But I started doing a lot of stuff in the store. And my dad's best friend, who was a graphic designer, said, you're really talented. Have you ever thought of going to art school? And I am like, no. He said, well, I can help you get into the Academy of Art College, which is in San Francisco, one of the finest schools in San Francisco. And I'm like, but I don't draw, I don't do art, like I know nothing. And he's like, don't worry, you'll be great. So he got me into the school, and I just jumped in, and I fell in love with graphics. And I'm really good with typography and graphic design. I always had a good eye for proportions and color and balance and all the things that make a good graphic designer. So it was just like being able to take all like my other skills that I already had and apply it. And so I started off as a designer and went to Academy, and got my first job in San Francisco after like a year or so in school. And then one thing led to another. And then I became a creative art director at a small agency, and we did a lot of retail fashion. So it was like a perfect combination of all my
nice.
love. And so we had like I Magnons and Ross Dress for Less. We opened the first 14 stores of Ross Dress for Less in California. And I hired all the models and did all the photo shoots and everything that I loved. And I got really close with the photographer. His name was Lloyd Levis, and we kind of started our own agency. I actually got fired out of that job. I was in way of my head. I was like 21 and like doing, a very important job. But I was good at it, but I was also, 21. And so we decided to start our own agency, and that was really successful. And I loved working with fashion and retail and different types of clientele, and doing mostly design and a little bit of marketing, because I realized there's a lot of people that could out design me, but not a lot of people that could outthink me. And so I started to put more strategy into it. Like, who are you really trying to target? Like, what is your brand here? What is the purpose for what you're trying to approach? And are you reaching the right audience? And all these different things started swimming in my head, that all came from working in the ad business as well. That was really helpful. So I started like thinking things through. So then I started like expanding to design and marketing. And then did that for very, successfully on my own pretty much for years. Moved back here to Los Angeles when my mom called and was like, come run my film company for a year. And I'd ended a 7-year relationship, and I'm like, okay, I'll do it for 1 year. Why not try something different, So hopped back in my little car and went back to LA, So it was 8/8/88. So I always remember the date. It's in my mind. So it's been, a few years now. And, worked for my mom, and she was like an executive producer, and they were doing a bunch of different film projects.
Yep.
And I was like, ew, like, I don't want to be in the film industry. Like, I don't like the way people treat each other. Like, it just doesn't seem right for me. And I prefer, more creative and fashion, or, something else. And I only worked for her for about 6 months, maybe. And I'm like, okay, enough of that, Mom. But but I liked it. And then next thing you know, people are asking me to design movie posters. And so I'm like, okay, I can do that because like it's still creative and gets my little feet in the movie business. Because, my brother at that time was like one of the senior editors at Hollywood Reporter. And, like everybody was working in the film business kind of but me. So it just kind of like led, it was like this slow burn, like dragging me into the film business. And then I was doing design and then marketing and then doing a few film like type things. And then I had a client and who's a phenomenal plastic surgeon, right? And so, he wanted me to do like some more marketing for him. And so I'm like, and then he's like, I want to get an article. And I'm like, okay, I don't know how to do that. But I had an idea, a concept, a brand for him. So I called up Time Magazine. I'm so naive. Called Time Magazine. I go, I've got a great idea for an article. And they're like, oh my God, that's a great idea. Let's do it. And I'm like, okay. Then I went to CNN, Time Warner, they had, they owned CNN at the time. And I'm like, oh, Time Magazine is doing an article on him. Would you like to have him on your show? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, cool. And then I went back to his like hometown newspaper and I'm like, hey, CNN and Time Magazine is doing a thing on him. I think you should do a piece as well, do like a feature. And they're like, okay. And all of a sudden now I am doing PR too. And like, I have no clue what I'm doing. I am just faking it. Like the funny thing is when I started designing movie posters, I just did creative movie posters. I didn't look at a whole bunch of like hundreds of movie posters that had been done before and how they looked and compared and so forth. So my ideas were very fresh and kind of unique and out of the box because I'm just not an in the box kind of gal. I don't even know how to get into a box. I only know how to be outside of the box, kind of make my own path. And so it was like the same thing with PR. I was like, I really had no clue what I was doing, but I just jumped in. And then I expanded my business to design, marketing, and PR. And then the PR over the years just really took off. And I started doing more and more entertainment projects. And it was kind of like, went to Sundance with a girlfriend of mine who was like a client. She was a film producer and literally got off the plane. And this fabulous man, Morris S. Levy, was there. And he's like, oh, I got a film premiere of my film, The 10, with Jessica Alba and Paul Rudd in 3 days. You want to do it? Help me promote it? And I'm like, sure. So I jumped
in the Jolson story. There's the shot, and I realize that biopics are not not historical, but they're factish. They're adjacent to that. But where he is picked out of an audience to sing, and because he was singing along, and he's picked out the audience to be able to sing, that seems to keep happening to you. This sounds very much the family legacy is that they pick you up and then they say, "How about this?" And you stand up and go, "Let me give it a shot."
Exactly. Yeah. I remember once I decided I was in San Francisco and I was still working in the advertising business, but I wanted to do some more work and I had these other ideas. So I literally called up this friend of mine that worked at a big ad agency. And I'm like, I want to start a new position. I have this great idea. If you combine this, and these skills, like trafficking, design, and I don't know, marketing, I don't remember what it was exactly at the time. And it would be a great one person to do the position. And he's like, oh, yeah, that's kind of a good idea. And I go, and I know, right? Just the person, me, like, I want to do it. So like, I got hired. I created a position, got hired to do it. It's kind of been that way for me. I've been very lucky. It's not that I just like, right now it kind of sounds like I'm flying by the seat of my pants all the time.
Oh, no, I don't. All right. I'm 73 this year. And what I realized, Nadine, is that the opportunity meets the internal consciousness of where we are. So there's a
Yeah.
drive that happens. There's a drive that happens. This isn't flying by the seat of the pants, is that when we are ready, the universe shows up with the opportunity. But we have to make that internal change first. We have to make that internal belief, the internal work that you're doing. And it's obvious that every magazine you looked at, every poster you drew, all that are your reps where you're
Yeah.
doing those to get prepared for when you step off that plane and he goes, let's build this.
Yeah. I mean, you just never know. I mean, just recently during the pandemic, here's another funny story. So I've always thought if I ever had time for a second career, I'd want to do interior design because it's
Yeah.
another thing I'm good at and I really enjoy it. And I, designed my home many times and, offices for clients and, a few other like minor projects here and there. But I always, thought, geez, I'd love to do this. So there was an opportunity with a client a couple of years back where there was a fire in the building, and he asked me, what would you do to redesign my office? Do you have any ideas? Because he knew, like I was into stuff, and so I gave him some ideas. He's like, "That's great, you should do it." And I go, "Okay." So I designed his office, and then he's like, "My mom needs a like a remake." Of her place, not a remodel, but just like, a redesign, could we meet with her and have her, help her? And I'm like, okay. So I went and we did this woman's house, 9,000 square foot house up in the hills. And then he's like, I'm building a new house, like, help me build the new house. And, so I met with the architects and did design. I'm like, again, this is all like, it's just like,
That's
comes to
right.
me, and I watch a lot of HGTV. So
Sure.
I've always been fascinated with stuff for many years. And so I've been like soaking it in without like, and then literally, we're a couple of months into the pandemic
Yep.
and I get a call, like, I bet you're not busy right now. Cause like, obviously the entertainment business shut down for quite a while. And I'm like, yeah, I'm free. And he goes, well, come work on the interior design of my home. And I'm like, okay. So, I was fully entertained and got to like actually do that. What I've always dreamed of, like really just focusing fully on it and giving it my all and doing the design of this phenomenal house. So yeah, it's like,
Wow.
it was great. And, again, if I have more time and opportunity, the entertainment business has like come back full fold,
Mm-hmm.
English, but I mean, I'm busy as a bee with my entertainment clients. I'm not sure when I'll have time again to do interior stuff, but if I get a chance, I'll do it again in a heartbeat. I
Well,
loved it.
that's the interesting thing about what we're doing in our careers, because when I was growing up, things were very set out, and as a matter of fact, for women, there was, okay, teacher, secretary, housewife, nurse. I mean, there was like this very clear demarcation, and now this is like, okay, we're going to create whatever it is that we can possibly envision. And because when I think of your agency, when I think of Jolson Creative, I can think of, okay, you're talking creative. You're not putting any word past this. This is creative. This is like, if you come and join this agency, we're going to see what we can do with you. And so there isn't a limit to a particular field or a particular whatever it is. I love the open-endedness of it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like I can apply it to anything. Like I may not know your product or service, but I'll learn about it. And it's a matter of applying it. My branding, it's like that original time in the advertising business about what's the brand, who's the customer, what are you trying to reach, how are you trying to reach them,
Mm-hmm.
what does it look like? That all plays into like, if I'm writing a press release, like what's the purpose here? Are you trying to just announce something? Are you trying to build, future business? Are you trying to like build a brand for your film company or you as a director? I mean, it applies to anything. And if I have a lifestyle client, like, are you trying to build a store? Are you trying to build people who are, a custom project or a custom job that you offer? It's like, whatever it is, I kind of am able to kind of see through the clouds and kind of get to the clarity of it and like what the
Nice.
brand is, how to present it. And, that's what it all is. It's like, how do you put it in that beautiful blue little box with the ribbon on it? So
Yep.
people get the brand, they get the value, because most people are really inconsistent. They think they're presenting themselves one way, but they're actually not. So it's one thing that I also help people with
Ah.
is their perception. Like, I'm sure my perception even of myself is probably a little different
Isn't
than
that? I mean, it really is. That's what we need. We need the
it is.
feedback, the trusted,
Yeah,
kind people,
yeah,
that are
yeah.
able to do that. So do you have a group that who sits at your inner table of dear friends that you can really bounce off of, that will give you the good feedback and help you
Oh,
and guide you
sure.
along? Is that the way you work?
Oh, absolutely. I have like mentors and spiritual coaches and, great friends. And, I have a really good network of people that I trust and rely. I've got a best friend who, we've been friends. I think we're going on 20, let's see, this 28,
Wonderful.
7 years. We met at doing a holiday party, Christmas party, New Year's Eve party, I mean, together, doing decorations. We met those many years ago. And I really trust and adore her, and I look up to her. She's in the real estate business, but she does a lot of philanthropy, and works with an amazing organization called Friendly House here in Los Angeles, and just dedicates so much to them. And I'm like in awe of her. So,
Isn't that
uh,
wonderful? I mean, that's where we can do. So, who is an ideal client for you? Who are the people that you feel like you can help the most? The ones that you're attracted to, that you say, "Hey, yeah, this is what I want to do."
well, to be honest, my favorite clients are ones that I get to do everything for, because I'm a little bit of a control freak. And part of that is really good because one of the things that I do control for clients is their brand messaging across all platforms. So many people have like one person doing their website, one person doing their advertising, one person doing their marketing, one person doing their social media, another person, whatever. And there's no consistency, there's no connection to all the products or services or brand, or just the simplicity of the color or the font, or any type of graphics. So one of the things I like to do is make sure that everything is consistent across the board, and that's how you get a smart message, and that's how you're going to reach your clientele or whatever it is you're trying to reach, because it takes consistency. The human brain takes 3 to 10 times of seeing an ad or some message to even register in its brain. So if you each of those 8 times you're sending them something different, they're not going to register on it. You need to send the same thing 8 times for them to even connect. I mean, if you look at Target, like I remember when they first started doing that, the silly Target red circle thing. And it was like, oh, this looks kind of lame. But like, look at all these years later, like 20, 30 years later, they're, whatever it is, like it works because, in a heartbeat, it's Target. And, not everybody is a big brand like that. Most of my clients are small businesses.
Yeah,
Uh, and,
and
and what
even
I,
an actor is a small business, right?
of
I mean,
course,
you're dealing with that.
property. Yeah, I don't do a lot of actors. It's a little more limited for me for that.
Hmm.
And I prefer projects. I've done a lot of films, so I work with filmmakers, so
Sure.
producers and directors more often than actors directly. I mean, I did have a phenomenal actor that I represented for 13 years, who's Tony Dennison from The Closer and Major Crimes. That's the client you actually reached out to me asking
That's the
about.
one that I would
And
get
that's
to you
how
to get to
we
you through
met.
Tony. Yes. All right. Well, all right. Well, we'll talk about that later. All right.
Yeah, we'll get back
So
to that
this
later.
is the neat part about this, Nadine, is all right. Now, let me ask you about a thousand questions all at once here. Let me see which one I can choose from. All right. Do you know an idea immediately when you see it, or does it have to grow on you, or do you let it percolate at night? What is your creative process?
Well, that's a great question. So thank you for asking it. So for me, it's kind of like I take a look, I meet with a client, and I ask them some leading questions, who they are, what they want, how they want to contribute to the universe, to the community, like what are their goals, dreams, desires, like the basic stuff. And what makes you stand out? Like, what do you have that no one else has? So I kind of take this information And then I look at whatever materials they already have. Most of my clients have already, they're not like brand new, like never done anything before, where there's a product or service or, director. And then I review that, and then I think, okay, so here's a dream or desire, and here's what they're presenting. And then I just kind of figure out that magical little formula. Sometimes it's a sentence, sometimes it's a point of view. And it honestly just comes to me. Sometimes it comes pretty instant. Like I've literally been on like a first production call with strategy call with the client and start talking, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, what if we did this and this, and then it kind of all unfolds. I really think it's kind of like this weird gift that I have. It's kind of like it just comes through me.
Exactly.
I know it's filtered through my expertise and my many years of experience of doing this and my, creative talent, but it definitely feels like it comes through me. I'm able to take somebody's idea and figure out how to better present it in that perfect little package that people can understand. I have this great story example. So I have a client, her name is Sassy Mohan. She's an amazing young female director who's really, like taking her career to the next level. She's, like a leader in female driven comedy. She had a couple of award-winning short films, and had this new show that she wanted to promote, came to me. And really needed to get out there. And I'm thinking, well, let me think, and she's got fire red hair and she's just full of life. But you can tell her intelligence is really strong. And so I just, for fun, I looked up sassy in the dictionary. And sassy, it says bold, lively, innovative, and a little bit cheeky. And I'm like, what?
It's her. Put her picture there. Put her picture
right. Like, oh my God. And I literally now on her marketing thing, I put her name, director, writer, producer, editor. And then I literally put the little dictionary definition, with the little, excuse me for being bad English. Please. But like just like it's out of the dictionary, right below it, because it's perfect brand for her. And now we have and her series is called How to Hack Birth Control. So it's like everything you need to know but you never did in a funny, charming, kind of like late night comedy sketch way. And her next is a series on climate control and voter registration and all that. And so now it's like when I represent her, it's like it's so easy for me to pitch her. And we've been doing great things, and we just got a new manager at Mojo Global Arts for her, and it's going great because people get it now. And now she's embraced her sassy, like it's because I had her do TikTok and set up TikToks, and so we call them sassy hacks, because she loves teaching people and young other filmmakers, especially women, about the film business, about how to write, how to direct, how to edit, how to produce, how to put projects together. And so we filmed a whole series, or she's filmed it. I mean, I just kind of guide her a little bit. She did all the work.
Kind of guide her. Yeah, exactly. But that's
and we call them sassy hacks, and it's like perfect for her brand. And it was so simple. Sometimes the best brand is the easiest, most basic thought in your mind.
Yeah.
But you just don't know it until it comes together. And once you have it, then we can grow from that, because you build a brand and it's like layers, there are verticals, and you want to keep growing and leveling up and get that established and make that solid so everybody knows, understands, and recognizes who you are, what your product or service is. Then you can build on it and expand and expand and expand and expand. And there's a lot of people that are multi-hyphenates, and it's not you have to be like just pick one thing, but you still need to pick one brand to represent your multi-hyphenates and be clear on that. And then you can have each of your different, departments, divisions, brain works, aligned with everything. So then everything balances better. And it's honestly, I think easier for my clients too, to figure out like how to market themselves and their social media and everything else. So.
And it's so interesting because when I think about across the history, when I've read the history of advertising and promotion and studied it as we have, is that it's the same basic principles but with new technology. But you just
Right.
use the same principles that you use across as you're dealing with a brand: consistency, clarity, innovation, fun, getting into that place inside of inside of us. How do you relax and recharge when you have as much energy as you have? How do you bring it down and work into that place to where you can come back again?
Well, I do love nature. So nature is my respite. And my old assistant, she was great, Desiree. She used to say when I would get tense or like upset or like like, oh my God, this is happening, and client demand or whatever, she would say, you need to go take a tree break. And I was like, okay, you're right. So I would literally step outside the office and go look at the beautiful trees outside and just, and just like relax, So I love spending time in nature, but one of my favorite pastimes, as silly as it sounds, I'm always embarrassed to say, is that I love shopping. I don't
How
spend a lot of
wonderful.
money. I don't always shop to spend money. It's not about that and filling a hole that's empty. It's more about I love going on treasure hunts is what I call it. Like I have an
Yeah.
idea or something I want or need, and then I have to go find it. Like I have to go find all these different things, and I love, being smart and knowing how to shop in my own closet. But when there's new seasons, like new fall season, I'll go out to a lot of the stores or look in the magazines, and I'll look at stuff and I'll get ideas. And then I'll go home and go, okay, how can I apply that? What do I have? Oh, those pants I've worn, those do is add this to it or whatever. And then, I have something more modern, or I can modernize something without actually having to spend a lot of money.
But what I find fascinating about that is because every single time that you go into a store, you're doing research, because no dress
Exactly.
or nothing comes out there
Yeah.
without all the steps that it took to get it there. And we can
Yeah.
reverse engineer. You can reverse engineer as a designer to say what were they thinking, how were they going. So it's constantly part of your process.
Yeah. And I love pretty shiny things.
There we go.
I love color. I love fashion. I love touching materials. Now that we can go back in the
Oh,
stores again and touch things, right?
that's
Um,
lovely.
I love just looking. I love just, the process of going out and seeing everything. It's like a movie to me. It's like, oh, look at that in that
Oh,
window. Oh, look at that in that window. Like, oh boy, this is so much fun. And then if I find one little trinket or something special, my newest thing now is, so I had a friend of mine who was really into thrifting and going to thrift stores. And I kind of was like, oh, I don't know about that. But I went a couple times with her, and I'm like, there's some cool stuff here. Like this is kind of cool. Like I've donated stuff to them 100 times over, but I've never really shopped at them. So I started going, and I found this one in my neighborhood that it's called the Trove. It's in Westwood, and I've been able to find Chanel sweaters for under $100. Like I can't afford Chanel. Chanel's one of my favorite brands, but I in no way can afford Chanel. And I find these great things, and I'm like, wow, this is so much fun. And it's like that treasure hunting, like really finding a treasure. And now my new thing is, because they take resale stuff, is I have to bring at least one full bag with me of stuff to sell, to get rid of,
oh,
to bring to them before I can shop. And so I feel really good
nice.
about
Nice.
sustainable clothing and all the stuff that's really good for the environment and everybody right now. Plus I get to shop and not spend very much money, because everything I sell then goes on credit, and then I can use my credits to buy things.
There you
So
go.
it's perfect.
What a smart thing. All right. Well, listen. Let me
It's so much
because
fun.
I have 10 hours, and this is just as far as I know right now to talk with you. I'm but what I want, and I'm going to want to talk. Please, and I know Renee and I are going to want to ask you to come back again. But I want to
Sure.
ask you: is there anything right now that we have not talked about that is just on your mind and your heart that I wouldn't have pulled out that is just going on in your brain right now?
That's a good question. Let me think. I think, you know, I'm going to actually be starting my own podcast. So, of course, I've never done it before. I have no clue what I'm doing, but I'm going to go do it.
Damn right.
Because like everybody's doing a podcast right now, and so many people don't know or understand PR. They don't understand how to hire a PR person. They don't understand what to look for, what they need, what to ask for, how to work with them. For me, with clients, it's always a collaboration. Like I don't just go out and do it and like report back to you. Like we work together. Like my job is to be of service to you. So however I can help you. So it's learning what it is, how to build your brand, how to hire and work with PR people or like image brand people like myself. And again, understanding and then how does everything integrate into social media. A lot of people don't understand like the bigger picture. So it's one thing that I want to do. And I love teaching. I actually did teach at Beverly Hills High School. Another quick story. Went to a career day thing. They asked me to speak at a career day about image marketing. And so I did, and it was so successful. And they asked me to come back and do it again. And then they're like, you should teach a class here. And I'm like, I'd love to, but I don't have a teacher credential. I don't have to. And they're like, well, because it's a special education class, like
Sure.
there's different credentials that I can get for you. Why don't you, I want you to do a class in the fall. I'm like, okay, no idea. And so I just like did everything they said to do. I mean, obviously did background checks and all that. And I just had to have
Yeah.
5 years of, experience in my workplace and, a lot of whole, hoops to jump through and so forth. But
Yep.
I just kept doing them and they kept going, okay. And your class starts like next week. And I'm like, oh my gosh. But I love teaching. I did it for like a year and then it was just a little too much for me to do with my business. But, when I retire or ever get, free time, I would in a heartbeat go back and do it again. But I think there's one thing I can do with my podcast, and I named it Creative Confidential because, of course, I love the
Oh, I love
creative.
that. Like I love the
Creative.
confidential because it takes you
Yeah,
right back to the entire the history of Hollywood. Confidential.
everything. Yes, and an inside look. Like I want to pull back the curtain or
Yep.
like teach people what it really is. So I've been recording. I haven't started posting yet, but I've been recording TikToks for that, also called Creative Confidential.
Yep.
That like, oh, I'm building a brand, and I just met with the client, and this is what we discussed, and here's the photo session that we did, and here's
Oh,
her film premiere that we did, and here's like, so it's kind of like a step-by-step process. It takes you through like the different stuff I do for the clients, of course with their permission to be on camera and everything.
sure.
But I decided, because now I'm starting to get asked, and my partner suggested, my fabulous partner Roz Wolf said you should we should get you on podcasts, and I'm
Thank
like,
you.
okay,
Thank you. I mean,
why
you
not promote
can't.
my own business? But I teach everybody else how to promote. Like I should do it for myself more. And so I came, you know what? I'm going to do my own podcast and do this. And I'm just going to record, like 4 of them a month and,
Oh,
put it out across whatever the networks are and invite different people, different
yep.
clients, different people who are an expert in their field to talk about like, what can they teach? What can they share with small business owners, with individuals that can benefit?
What I love about that, Nadine, is that every single person is an individual brand and an individual
Yeah.
business in today's. So every aspect of what happens with you and that goes through the creative process is the same creative process whether we are working at a business, because
Sure.
everyone's a free agent now. Even if you're under contract, you got the golden handcuffs and you be able to go. You still have to be able to run your own own brand and be able to do
Thank
all
you.
the things that you listed. I think it's going to be incredibly relevant for people who are both in the business and who are looking to be able to
Yeah,
build
thank you.
themselves. I think it's going to be terrific. We would love to promote
Yeah.
it and talk
Yeah, oh,
with you
thank
more
you.
about it as
I'll
you're
have you on as a guest.
any time. Nadine, thank you so much for both for your graciousness and opening up. The opportunity to be able to see your creative power and to see your fun and your excitement. It's so contagious, and so you've given me a real and I'm uplifted by this, and I know that, and I want to thank our director Renee Jaworski for being here to be able to take care of us, and I look forward to getting a chance to talk with you next time and seeing you and your wonderful clients, which we're going to be pursuing.
Yes.
So thank you
Yes, I've
very
got
much.
3 clients for you. I'll be sending you some.
We're we're ready. We're
Yep, good.
all right. Thank you,
Terrific.
Nadine, and thank
Thank
you
you so much,
everybody
and
out
thank you,
there.
Renee, too,
All
for
right.
putting this all together.